Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this video. This is going to kind of piggyback off of my last video where I did a get ready with me and it featured this Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 palette. I consider this a really rosy palette. While a lot of the shades are kind of dusty, you know, maybe a little bit stepped down from pure pink. It's a beautiful palette and it seems to be rooted in some rosy tones and everything that just goes well with that. But also recently I got another palette that definitely includes some similar colors, but the palette as a whole has a lot of differences to the one I just showed, and this is from Melt, and it's called the Gemini 2 palette. As you can see, it's got a real string of like rose and burgundy and also some green in this palette as well. And I really wanted to do a video talking about both of them so I could compare and contrast and just kind of let you know what to expect with these different palettes. And first off, I think it's very interesting that like a palette such as this is coming out at this time of year. I mean, I of course love these tones any time of year, but I feel like doing a burgundy eye look, a lot of people would see that and think, oh, that's very fall or even winter. There is a lot of depth in this palette. So we're going to talk through everything, and like I said, if you want to see a tutorial with this one, it's in my most recent Get Ready With Me, so I'll link to that below so you can easily get there to see it. But then this one, I'll show the tutorial in this video for the Gemini 2. So just to back it up a little bit, if you don't know too much about the Patrick Ta palette, this is the Major Dimension 2. There's a Major Dimension 1 that I never purchased. It's more in the browny, bronzy looking tones, and I just managed to not get that one. I felt like I had a lot of that color in my collection, and then around the Sephora sale time, I realized, oh, there's another one, and I think it's the kinds of shades I absolutely cannot turn down here. So we're seeing shine right here because there are two creams, and then other than that, the whole top row is shimmer and the whole bottom row is matte. And it's a really great range of mattes. Everything blends so easily, and every shade, like as I noted in my tutorial, every passing shade that you add to the look just merges and mixes so well. And there's a lot of shimmer happening up in here, like a really boldly shimmery shades, to where putting them on a finger even gives you a little different look compared to just patting them on with a brush. They can be put on with a brush and you can be satisfied with that look, but then it's absolutely like foiled when you pat it on with a finger. And there's some interesting shades too that actually have a little bit of a shift. For example, this one that looks a little bit coppery at a glance, it gives off a lot of gold as it catches the light. And then there's this color right here next to it where it can look pink, but it can also pick up on some goldeny tones. So while it's a rosy palette, and sometimes while we think rose, we think cool, like maybe, you know, certain shades in the bottom row might give you kind of a cool vibe. A lot of these colors, I think, do bring in the warmth a little bit. But like all four of these shades across the top bring a lot of shimmer and shine. But then this dark plum right here is a little bit more of a traditional shimmer. Like it's just soft and very like kind of pigmented metallic almost. And then you have these two creams. One is like a dusty rose mid-tone and one is a deep brownish plum, and they are so much fun to use in your eye look to kind of layer some of these shimmers on top of, not maybe directly on top of, but like it does give them a little something extra to grab onto. And it's fun to layer the mattes and the deeper shades on top of them as well for just some added intensity. And I've just enjoyed every single look I've done with this. There's not one look where I've come away dissatisfied. And I do like also that if you didn't want to go crazy with the shimmer on a given day, you could stick with these mattes and do a gorgeous all matte, very dusty rose, maybe even with a little warm brown. See, these colors right here really offer some warmth to a look. This is almost like a rusty shade right here. So I just love the choices that were made in this palette. I love the textures, and I'm not always that big of a person who's like, I crave shimmer, I need great shimmer in every palette. Normally it's like I'd like to just look at a palette and see more matte than shimmer usually, and primarily use a lot of those mattes. But these shimmers are so much fun. They're brilliant and they pack on and layer on to your desired intensity, really. So I love this. This palette is absolutely stunning. I think it was worth it. I'm not sure if I'll go ahead and maybe, given my success with this, want to check out the first Patrick Ta palette. Maybe I will. But this one, I can just tell you, has so many of the tones that I love and enjoy on my eyes. Rosy shades, really working into some nice earthy colors, and then these glitzy splashes that can turn it into such a glam, fun look. So I've been loving that. And again, for the full tutorial, check my last video. It was a really fun look, and I felt like as I was editing, I just kept gushing over how great this palette is. Now, how does that compare to the Melt Gemini 2? Well, maybe I should give a little backstory. I do have the first edition of this palette. It's called Gemini, and it is a very green, earthy palette here. We have greens that really show, so like some mid-tones that don't get too dark. Like I'd say this is a deep green, but there's enough lightness here to really bring out the green in a look that you might choose to do. What's this little loop back here? Okay. Then we have a little series of warm brown over here, and we also have a pure, very rich black. So lots of range in this palette, great for those earthy shadow lovers and green shadow lovers. But then with the Gemini 2, what they did was they gave you a little bit of green, but then also so much of this rosiness and burgundy and plum. And for the first couple of times I used this, I really just stuck with these shades because I didn't feel inspired or really like interested in pulling in even one of these greens when I had this whole beautiful range right here. Now the shimmers in this palette are only two, okay? Right here is a smooth, like dirty penny kind of shade right there. And then this green that does have, you know, a little bit of shine, as you can see. But on the eyes, that shade is so dark. And I'll expand on the greens in a second. But first off, what I really first got acquainted with were all of these, and I could very happily do an all matte eye here, and I love the range. I kind of like how nothing's lighter in this palette than this, you know, that's your lightest shade, that's what's all over my lid right now, and it pairs so beautifully. Those peachy lightest shades could not look prettier with these like plummy and burgundy things going on here. It's the smoothest, just so ideal. I love these tones. I love, love, love them. And it goes a little more like reddish than the Patrick Ta. As you can see, Patrick Ta coming back into, you know, a rusty shade that's maybe about as reddish as it gets, and then just the really deep brownish plum. This has that brownish plum, but I feel like the pinks and reds are a little more bold, and here it's a little more earthy. So I do absolutely adore what the rosy part of this palette can create. It is my ideal type of look. It's the kind of look you guys will see me do, and there'll be at least a few people in the comments section who are like, this is nice, but we need you to step away and try some other colors now, because it just is so what I like. But it's very interesting because there's so many palettes who are just turning to a rosy look these days, and I am here for it and I love it. The quality of Melt eyeshadows is fantastic. They're soft, they're pigmented. When you watch the tutorial, pay attention to how little I'm getting on my brush with every step of the application. It's really super easy. But now, what about what's over here? To me, in a nutshell, I feel like they put in 3 green shades here to kind of still tie back to the original, but they don't give off a very green look at all on the eyes. I really focused in on those the other day for a look, and you know, I may have set up the crease with like a couple shades over here, but then, you know, worked all 3 of these into the look, and I just felt like it was so murky. I mean, now if you like a super, just barely there green eye, maybe you will be happy with that. Maybe you're buying this mostly for these shades and you really would just assume not have too much of a green look on the eyes. Everything here just creates a dark, super duper murky green look. Even the one with the shimmer, it's just like, yeah, I can maybe see a little bit of that if I'm looking really close at the eye and really honing in and really thinking green in my head and then looking at it like maybe there's some green. But I was surprised at how little it really showed. But then I looked back at the original Gemini and I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why the green showed so much here, because you had more like light shades such as this or this that were really brilliant, that played off of those greens and brought these olives just kind of out a little bit and really made them show. So if you're a green lover, and you're new to this whole melt game, this is the one you would probably want to have, because this is where the green really shows. And here, I mean, the stars of the show are the rose and burgundy shades, and the greens just end up being very, very murky. Now, I did kind of like how I felt like I could use them, and you know, these could be my crease shades, and you know, they can play well together, but you just don't get a lot of green look out of it. And I just feel like when I open it up, I don't love the feeling of opening up a palette and thinking, now there's a chunk of it I don't love to use. You know, like, especially with the expense, you know, the cost of these high-end palettes, it's like, I don't like to look at it and just have that mentality. And again, it's not that they're bad, but it's just, I'm so drawn to these others. I just open it up and I feel like I ignore that side a little bit. Whereas with this Patrick Ta palette, I feel like it's 100% a go, 100% worth the money, because like every single part of it, I enjoy on some level. I let this be my spotlight shade in the actual tutorial I did, but in other looks, I've used the other shades. I feel like everything is available to me and works well with each other so harmoniously. And it's cool to have the creams. It's lovely that they put them under a window like that. There's not a piece of it that feels less than, you know, for me. And here, you know, I respect the fact that they're trying to kind of stay true to Gemini 1. This looks so cohesive right here, this whole chunk. And then these, you do work them into a look eventually, and you maybe used them because you thought you wanted green, but then the green doesn't show as satisfyingly well as it does in the original. So now we're going to press pause on all the chat, and we're going to go to the tutorial actually of how this look came together, and that'll probably give you even more info on the quality of the eyeshadows. We're just going to throw together kind of a classic look from this palette, and you can see how it all comes together. I'm going to start out in my crease with this color called Ladylike, and it is one of many mattes in this palette, but I just feel like it's really nice for the crease. I kind of feel like as I apply it, it seems just a little darker in application than you might think it would be, judging by how it looks there in the pan. But it's a really nice shade, and it's kind of like a dusty peach. So I'm just getting that all buffed in here, nice and soft, allowing myself to take it up a little higher if I want to. And then above that, I'm going to blend a little bit of this lightest peach called Bella. And I love the rose imprints on here. I kind of feel sad that I'm starting to mess them up. But that was a really pretty little detail. And you can see the peachiness just kind of now coming out from what I first put in the crease. I think that's so pretty. And this is really the lightest shade. So that's something to be aware of if you don't love the mid to deep shadow tones on your eyes at all times. It doesn't get real light here. So there's those two shades kind of setting up the crease. Then I want to go a little darker yet in the crease. I think I'm going to go to this really pretty classic dusty rose right here. Love that. There's a slightly lighter pinky shade beside it. But look how pretty that is, just now deepening up the crease. It's blending with those other mattes so nicely, so easily. And I did already have Milani eyeshadow primer on, by the way. So first place you put your brush is where the most color goes, so that's kind of the outside, and then I'm bringing it in a little bit. This has all been done with the same brush so far. Okay, so we established the crease, we went above it with something a little bit lighter, and now we've just deepened the crease. Now we're going to deepen our outer corner area. We do have one shade with shimmer in this like burgundy bunch. It's kind of like a really dark copper with shimmer, but the thing I want to do, I kind of want to show you how far this palette can go just in terms of depth. So I'm going to use this LX Queen shade right here, which is kind of like a dark brown and burgundy mixed. Honestly, it's sort of like the color of a real actual plum. Sometimes we think of plums as really purpley shades when really not that purple. See what I mean? This nice darkness is now coming into play, just patting on the outer part of the lid. And I will play with this one called Lovesick in a second. I'm going to use that kind of blending up out of it too. But for now, we're just patting that dark shade on the outer part of the lid so you can see what this color does. Really, really pretty. The potential is so there for a very dramatic, deep, beautiful eye. And next, what I feel like doing is shaping that a little bit more, still working with the same dark shade, but using my Profusion small pointed brush. Same color, and then I'm wanting to actually really create a shape here. A little bit more even than my usual stuff that I do. So I'm taking that color, I'm first going right into the darkest part of my crease, and then I'm kind of like doing little circular motions up and out. And you can see I'm starting to build that dark shade almost in the direction of the outer end of my eyebrow. Okay, we're just pulling it up and out. And it is a really dark shade, and sometimes it can be a little scary as you start to bring a dark shade, you know, away from the lash line area or the lid area. But it really, as you can see, I'm not having a hard time blending this at all. And we will sort of retransition, you know, sometimes at the end of the look I like to bring yet another shade in that helps us merge away from the darkness. And this Lovesick shade is just too pretty not to use in this look. But again, we're starting right in the crease, a little bit of that darkest shade on the brush, and we're just blending out. And I think the key is going a little at a time. If you just slap a ton of product on the eye all at once, you will be overwhelmed and things can get splotchy and things can get difficult to blend. I think any shade can. But if you build it up slowly and we use our little circular motions and we just kind of take it a little at a time, your end result can be so satisfying. So again, we're going for the lifted look. A big key to staying lifted is to imagine a line right here from the outer part of your eye to the edge of your brow. Pretend like you're looking at that and not dropping your shadow down below it. If I started blending way out here, we would have a very droopy kind of look developing, but because we're not, and we still have a soft edge. It's not like we have a really firm line here, but we're just using those little circular motions. We have a soft edge and we're keeping it above that imaginary line. There we go. I'm really pleased with that shape. I love it so much. And now we're going to go back to the original brush we used in the crease, and I want to play with a little bit of this color right here, Lovesick, and get a little bit of that on the brush. When I go into these shades, these are very intense. I am dabbing and that's it, okay? You can go back for more if you need to, but I promise you will see the color on your eyes even with that tiny bit of a dab. I'm going directly over the darkness that I can see right out here. Just go right on top of it and then kind of blend out a bit. Do you see how we've gotten now a little more redness, a little more rosy color? I love it. And it's a little lighter than our deep, deep plummy brown. So it really works in this way. And then you might look at your eye, and kind of what I'm seeing over here is that maybe it's not quite dark enough on my outer lid. And part of that might be just, you know, a brush passing over it inadvertently here and there. So I'm going to go back to my flat brush, pick up some of that darkest shade right there, and just make sure that our darkest spot is the outer lid and crease. Okay, then I'm going to clean off that brush because we're going to use the same one. A lot of times when I say I'm going to clean off that brush, I'm just swiping it over my hand, and I'm not only swiping the flat sides of the brush, but I'm also kind of working the sides of the brush because I've been burned a few times when a brush using a dark shade, I thought I cleaned it off, and then I go in with something lighter. I'm like, whoop, there was still some stuff on there. We are going to go to, let's see, let's use Bella. This is our lightest shade, and I love how this looks as it comes in contact with that plum. Look at that peach and plum. It's like the lid looks so spotlighted, but in a totally different way from, you know, like the Patrick Ta palette. Not that you couldn't work with the lighter shade in the Patrick Ta palette like this, but it really is tempting anytime I open that. I'm like, I want to use a shimmer on the lid, but look at this. This is as light as it gets, that peach. And look how beautifully that plays with the plums and the berries. It's just a fruit mix on the eyes right now. Man, do I love that look. Continuing on and just thinking about the lower lash line now, I think I will do a little bit of this shimmer color right here. It's called Shmoo. And just get a little bit of that on my brush. and it can define my lower lash line a bit. For some reason, pulling the shadow out like that makes it feel like such a much more dramatic look, and I feel the need to come under the eye with something. So pretty. So again, when you're putting something on the lower lash line, I'm also thinking I don't want it to drop down too far if I'm committing to this uplifted kind of look. So I don't want that shadow to, you know, work down in an area that I was trying to avoid with the shape of everything. Kind of keep it in line. That is so pretty, that murky brown. I mean, it's not like the kind of shade that's going to just shock you with shimmer, you know, but it just has a softness to it that I think works nicely on the lower lash line. All right, so there is my shadow look, my friends, with the Melt Gemini 2 palette. I really am pleased with the way that turned out. It's probably the most dramatic kind of big shadow look I've done with it so far. So I'm gonna finish things off with a little bit of liner and mascara, possibly a lash, and I'll be right back. So here is the finished eye look. I used my NYX Epic Ink liner and I winged it out. And then I did take a little bit of my darkest shadow and just kind of with an angled brush connect up to my wing, and it just kind of faded right into the other shadow that I put there. But then I did mascara top and bottom, and I popped on a lash. This is one of the longer lashes in the Kiss So Wispy Curated collection. I think it's the 01 style, and that is my finished look, and I'm so pleased with the way the shadow looks and the way everything blended. On my cheeks, I started out with this Huda blush in Rebel Red, and then at the end of the look I decided I wanted a little more, so I pulled in Wet n Wild Mellow Wine. Mellow Wine looks so much like, you know, the kind of color that's coming up out of the eye, so that worked well. And then I'm wearing my favorite deep lip color here. This is the Superstay Matte Ink Crayon in Live on the Edge. And by the way, my foundation that I'm wearing all over is my Huda Stick Foundation. So I love the entire look. I'm really pleased with the way the eye came together, like no complaints. So to wrap this all up, my friends, my #1 pick is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2. This one I feel just is 100% workable for me. I like opening the palette and thinking I can go anywhere with this. I can use any shade. I can put together any combination of shades and it's gonna work beautifully and be my kind of earthy rose look on the eyes. And then with Gemini 2, while I greatly love a good chunk of this palette, there's also a chunk that I don't think is quite as good. So you might be saying, well, then what do I do if I really love the kind of look you did today, Em? Well, there is a palette out there called the Milani Ungilded Most Loved Mattes, and it does have, like, you know, some rosiness. It's got a deep red, it's got a really dark brown. It might not get quite as dark as the Melt Gemini 2, that LX Queen shade there, but you know, close. And you can also go even a little warmer with this one. You know, this is definitely not going to throw any orange at you, but I do love the quality here for just a phenomenal matte neutral palette, and it could achieve, I think, this kind of a look because I see the softer shades, I see the depth, I see the rosiness, there's a burgundy, and I really think I could execute a similar look with this. So knowing what I know now, even though I've absolutely fallen in love with some of the reddish toned looks I've done with the Gemini 2, I do think it's something I could have skipped. Patrick Ta, in my opinion, beautiful, beautiful quality. Every single part of it is a masterpiece, in my opinion. I'm never sponsored here. I have no reason to like blow a product up more than what it is. I have no loyalty to the Patrick Ta brand or any brand, so I really, truly am 100% free to say anything I want here, and I think that that Patrick Ta palette is a true work of art, okay? And if I had to recreate this look with Milani, I think I could come pretty close. So there's my story. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video helped you, especially if you enjoy palettes in that rosy color tone like I do. Let me know if you have any questions, anything I didn't cover in the comments section, and I will see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.